I'm Eleanor Wilson, 68 years old, and I've been planning my grandkids' birthday party for weeks. My children think I'm too old-fashioned, but I wanted everything to be perfect. This morning, as balloons filled the living room, my excitement turned to shock when my own children locked me in the garage. "Stay out of our fun, Mom," they laughed, walking away. Little did they know about the secret door my late husband built, or the revenge I was about to unleash. Where are you watching from today? Hit like and subscribe to join me on this journey of teaching my disrespectful children a lesson they'll never forget. After 42 years as an elementary school teacher, retirement should have been my golden years. I'd spent my life shaping young minds, including those of my own children. But since Harold passed away 5 years ago, things had changed. The respect I once commanded seemed to fade with each passing month. I have 3 children, all with distinctly different personalities. Amanda, my oldest at 42, inherited my organizational skills but also my stubbornness. She's a corporate lawyer with a meticulous attention to detail that serves her well in the courtroom, but makes her overbearing at family functions. Timothy, 39, is my middle child and only son. He has Harold's easy charm and creative mind, working as a graphic designer for a marketing firm. Unlike his father, though, Timothy lacks follow-through, often abandoning projects halfway. Rachel, my youngest at 35, has always been the family peacemaker. As a social worker, she mediates conflicts professionally, but lately, she's sided more with her siblings than with me. When Harold was alive, we were the centerpiece of family gatherings. Our home was where everyone came for holidays, celebrations, and Sunday dinners. Harold would barbecue while I prepared sides and desserts. We were respected, our opinions valued. But after the funeral, subtle shifts began occurring. First, it was small suggestions. "Mom, nobody makes Jell-O salads anymore," or "Those curtains are so dated, let me help you pick new ones." I didn't mind the occasional suggestion, but soon they became directives. My children began making decisions without consulting me, as if my age had diminished my capability to choose for myself. This pattern reached a crescendo when my grandchildren, Timothy's twins Jackson and Lily, were approaching their 13th birthday. A milestone celebration deserved special attention, and I had ideas brewing for weeks. I clipped magazine articles about teen party trends, researched appropriate games that would be fun without being too childish, and planned a menu that would satisfy both young palates and adult tastes. 3 weeks before the party, I invited my children over for coffee to discuss arrangements. I'd prepared a binder with sections for decorations, food, activities, and gifts. The moment I placed it on the dining table, I saw the exchanged glances. "Mom," Amanda began, her lawyer voice in full effect, "we appreciate your enthusiasm, but we've already discussed some ideas. The twins want something more contemporary." "Contemporary," I repeated, confused. "What does that mean?" Timothy leaned forward. "They want a gaming theme, Mom. Video games, smartphones, that kind of thing." "I've researched that," I said eagerly, flipping to a section in my binder. "There are wonderful scavenger hunts we can design using smartphone clues, and—"
"No, Mom," Rachel interrupted gently.
"They want actual gaming. Timothy's setting up multiple screens in the living room. The kids will play tournaments. But what about interaction? Conversation? Memories?" I asked, feeling my carefully crafted plans dissolving. "Kids socialize differently now," Amanda said dismissively. "They connect through these games." I tried to hide my disappointment. "Well, what about food? I was thinking a build-your-own taco bar would be fun and—" "We've already arranged catering," Timothy said. "Modern stuff. Sushi, sliders, those fancy little dessert cups." Each suggestion I offered was countered, each idea dismissed. By the end of our meeting, my role had been reduced to helping with setup and staying out of the way. I nodded and smiled, but inside I felt hollow. These were my grandchildren too. This was my home. Yet somehow, I'd been relegated to the position of helpful bystander. The week before the party, I overheard a conversation that truly broke my heart. I was in the kitchen preparing tea when my children gathered in the living room, unaware of my presence. "So we're agreed then?" Amanda's voice carried clearly. "We need to manage Mom during the party. She'll want to intervene with her games and stories, Timothy sighed. The kids will be mortified. She means well, Rachel offered weakly. Meaning well doesn't make her any less embarrassing, Amanda replied. Remember Thanksgiving when she insisted everyone share what they were thankful for? Jackson nearly died of humiliation. Their laughter cut through me like a knife. I'd thought that tradition was meaningful. A moment of reflection in our busy lives. To hear it mocked as embarrassing hit harder than I could have imagined. So what's the plan? Timothy asked. Keep her busy with small tasks, Amanda suggested. Setting out napkins, refilling chip bowls. Things that make her feel useful but keep her from taking over. And if that doesn't work? Rachel asked. There was a pause before Amanda answered. We'll figure something out. This party needs to be cool. Not a throwback to the 1970s. I quietly retreated to my bedroom, tea forgotten, a weight settling in my chest. When had I become someone to manage rather than include? When had my experience become something to dismiss rather than value? Despite the hurt, I resolved to make the best of things. These were still my grandchildren, and I wanted their day to be special. I would follow my children's lead, even if it meant stepping back. But I couldn't help adding a few personal touches. Special decorations I placed around the house the night before, homemade cookies tucked among the catered desserts, small gift bags with disposable cameras so the children could capture memories their own way. Little did I know how quickly even these small contributions would be swept aside. I woke up the morning of the party with butterflies in my stomach. Despite my children's dismissal of my ideas, I was determined to make this a special day for Jackson and Lily. I'd set my alarm for 6 o'clock, wanting plenty of time to prepare before everyone arrived. My home, a 2-story colonial that Harold and I had purchased 35 years ago, had seen countless celebrations. Every corner held memories, height marks on the kitchen doorframe, scratches on the hardwood from Christmas tree stands, the slight dent in the living room wall from when Timothy had attempted indoor baseball. This house was more than wood and plaster. It was a physical manifestation of our family history. I'd spent the previous evening adding subtle decorations that I hoped would pass my children's scrutiny. Silver and blue streamers, the twins' favorite colors, hung delicately from the dining room chandelier. Photo frames displaying the twins' growth through the years created a timeline along the hallway. Small touches that wouldn't interfere with the contemporary gaming theme but would add warmth and personalization. As I brewed my morning coffee, the doorbell rang. Amanda stood on the porch with boxes of party supplies, her expression all business. You're up early, I said, stepping aside to let her in. Lots to do, she replied, not making eye contact. Timothy and Rachel will be here soon with the electronics and catering. I've made some space in the living room, I offered. And I thought perhaps in that corner we could set up a small area for those who might not want to play games the whole time. Maybe some cards or... Amanda cut me off with a sharp look. Mom, we've been over this. The living room is for gaming stations only. That's what the kids want. I swallowed my suggestion and nodded. Of course. Can I help you unpack those boxes? I've got a system, she said, already organizing items on the dining table. Why don't you make sure the guest bathroom has enough towels? And so it began. Each of my children arrived with clear visions of how the party should unfold, none of which included my input. Timothy transformed my living room into what looked like an electronics store display, with multiple television screens, gaming consoles, and tangles of wires that surely violated some safety code. Rachel arranged the catered food on my best serving platters, sushi, miniature hamburgers, and trendy desserts that looked more decorative than edible. I moved between them like a ghost, offering help that was politely but firmly declined, making suggestions that were immediately overruled. When I brought out the disposable cameras I'd purchased, Rachel took them with a tight smile. These are retro, she said, the word sounding like a polite substitute for outdated. But the kids all have smartphones with better cameras than most professionals. I'll put these away for now. The cameras never reappeared. By 11 o'clock, guests began arriving, 13-year-olds with smartphones permanently attached to their hands, parents dropping off with hurried waves. The house filled with noise, electronic beeps and artificial explosions from the games, excited teenage chatter, the background hum of adults trying to make conversation over the din. I stood in the kitchen, arranging cookies on a plate, feeling increasingly superfluous in my own home. Jackson and Lily had given me quick hugs before being swallowed by their friend group, barely acknowledging the personal gifts I'd placed on their beds that morning. "Mom," Timothy called, appearing in the kitchen doorway. "We're running short on seating in the game room. Can you grab those folding chairs from the garage?" Finally, something useful I could do. "Of course," I said, perhaps too eagerly. "How many do you need?" "All of them," he replied, already turning away. "And hurry, the tournament is about to start." I made my way to the attached garage, flipping on the light switch as I entered. Our garage had become something of a storage area since Harold's passing. His workbench remained untouched along one wall, tools hanging in the precise arrangement he'd always maintained. Boxes of holiday decorations, old-school projects I couldn't bear to discard, furniture we no longer used but might need someday. All carefully organized but filling the space. The folding chairs were stacked against the far wall. I had just reached them when I heard the door behind me close with a decisive click. Thinking it was the wind, I gathered 4 chairs and turned back toward the house. The door was shut. I balanced the chairs against my hip and reached for the knob. It didn't turn. I set the chairs down and tried again with both hands, jiggling the handle with increasing force. Nothing. "Hello," I called, knocking on the door. The door seems to be stuck. For a moment, silence. Then muffled laughter from the other side. "Timothy," I called, confusion giving way to understanding. "Amanda? Rachel? Is someone there?" "Sorry, Mom." Amanda's voice came through the door, not sounding sorry at all. "We think it's best if you sit this one out." "What do you mean?" I asked, disbelief coloring my voice. "Open this door right now. The kids are having fun," Timothy added. "They don't need their grandmother hovering and trying to get them to play charades." I wasn't going to. I began, but was interrupted by Rachel. "It's just for a couple of hours, Mom. We've got everything under control." "Stay out of our fun, Mom," Amanda called, her voice already moving away from the door. "We've got this covered." I stood frozen, the reality of what was happening sinking in. My own children had deliberately locked me in the garage. They had conspired to exclude me from my grandchildren's celebration, in my own home. The betrayal cut deeper than any wound I'd ever experienced. "This isn't funny," I called, pounding on the door. "Let me out right now." But they were gone. The sounds of the party continued inside. Music, laughter, gaming sound effects, while I stood alone in the garage, locked away like an embarrassing secret. For several minutes, I alternated between disbelief and rage. I pounded on the door until my hands hurt, called out until my voice grew hoarse. No one came. Either they couldn't hear me over the noise of the party, or more likely, they were deliberately ignoring my calls. I sank onto one of the folding chairs, tears threatening. Was this what I had become to my family? A nuisance to be managed? An embarrassment to be hidden away? After all the years of loving them, teaching them, supporting them through every milestone and hardship, this was how they valued me? The hurt was so profound it left me breathless. But as I sat in the dusty stillness of the garage, surrounded by the remnants of our family history, something else began to build alongside the pain. Something that felt remarkably like determination. The initial shock of my situation gave way to a complex wave of emotions. Hurt pooled in my chest, making each breath feel heavy. How could my own children treat me this way? What had I done to deserve such disrespect? I'd given them everything, my time, my love, my support through every triumph and failure. Now they'd locked me away like an embarrassing family secret. The hurt quickly kindled into anger, burning away my tears. I stood up and paced the concrete floor, my footsteps echoing in the cluttered space. This was my house. My grandchildren's birthday. My family. Who were they to decide I didn't belong? I surveyed my surroundings, looking for something, anything, that might help me rejoin the party and confront my children. The garage was a monument to 40 years of family life. Harold's workbench stood against the far wall, his tools still hanging in perfect order on the pegboard above it. Boxes labeled in my neat handwriting contained holiday decorations, winter clothes, and memorabilia I couldn't bear to part with after the children left home. An old bicycle leaned against the wall, its once bright paint now dulled with age and disuse. Near the corner, stacked plastic containers held remnants of my children's childhoods, report cards, art projects, sports trophies. The irony wasn't lost on me that I'd preserved these treasures while they discarded me so easily. I tried the main garage door, but Timothy had disconnected the automatic opener years ago after it malfunctioned, promising to fix it someday. That day never came, and the heavy door was now effectively sealed without the opener. The side door that led to the backyard was blocked by Harold's massive tool cabinet, which I couldn't possibly move on my own. I was truly trapped. Sinking back onto the folding chair, I closed my eyes and took deep breaths, trying to calm my racing heart. Harold would know what to do. He always had a solution for everything, a calm presence in any storm. "What would you do, Harold?" I whispered to the empty garage. As if in answer, a memory surfaced, so clear it was almost like hearing his voice again. We had been doing renovations on the house shortly after buying it. The original kitchen had been separated from the pantry by a wall, making the space feel cramped. Harold had decided to remove that wall, but in doing so, discovered an unusual gap between the garage and the pantry, a quirk of the house's construction. "It's like a secret passage," he'd said, eyes twinkling with boyish excitement. "We could leave it as is, or..." Instead of sealing it up, Harold had installed a narrow door on both sides, one in the garage disguised as part of the storage shelving, and another in the back of the pantry, hidden behind a false wall of canned goods. He'd show me how to operate both latches. "It's for emergencies," he'd explained. "Gas leaks, fires, that sort of thing. Or in case we lock ourselves out," I'd added, laughing. "Exactly," he'd agreed, never imagining the true emergency would be our own children locking me away. My eyes flew open, heart pounding with renewed hope. The secret door. How could I have forgotten? In the 15 years since Harold's modifications, we'd never needed to use it. The knowledge had slipped from active memory into the dusty archives of my mind. I moved toward the shelving unit against the interior wall. It looked ordinary: metal shelves stacked with paint cans, garden supplies, and boxes of Christmas lights. But if memory served, the third shelf from the bottom could be pulled out slightly, revealing a hidden latch. I knelt down, ignoring the protest in my knees, and ran my hands along the underside of the shelf. Nothing. Had I remembered incorrectly? I tried the shelf above, then below. Still nothing. Frustration threatened to overwhelm me again when my fingers caught on a small metal protrusion on the side of the shelving unit. I pressed it and heard a faint click. The entire section of shelving shifted slightly. I pulled gently, and it swung outward like a door, revealing a narrow passage behind it. Relief flooded through me so intensely I nearly cried again. Harold's foresight, even from beyond the grave, was saving me. The passage was dark and narrow, requiring me to turn sideways to navigate it. Cobwebs clung to my hair and clothes as I inched forward, one hand trailing along the wall for balance. After about 10 feet, I felt another door. This one opened with a simple push, leading into the back of our pantry, just as I remembered. I stood still for a moment, listening. Through the pantry door, I could hear the party in full swing. Music thumping, children shouting over video game sound effects, adult conversation creating a constant background hum. No one had any idea I was no longer trapped in the garage. I moved a few canned goods aside and peered through the crack in the pantry door. The kitchen was empty at the moment, though plates of half-eaten food and empty cups indicated people had been through recently. I was about to push the door open when voices approached. "Mom will be fine in there for a few hours," Amanda was saying as she entered the kitchen with Rachel. "She has her phone if there's an emergency." Actually, I didn't. My phone was charging on my bedside table, a detail they'd conveniently overlooked or perhaps counted on. "I still think it was harsh," Rachel replied, though her tone lacked conviction. "We could have just asked her to give the kids space." Amanda snorted. "When has that ever worked? She would have been forcing everyone to play charades or telling embarrassing stories about Timothy by now. You know how she is." "Is that what you think of me?" I wanted to shout. Instead, I remained silent, watching my daughters through the narrow opening. "Did you see how she decorated the hallway with those old photos?" Amanda continued, rolling her eyes as she refilled a bowl with chips. "So tacky. And those streamers in the dining room? I took them down before anyone noticed." The kids seem to be having fun at least, Rachel offered, retrieving more napkins from a drawer. Of course they are, because we planned it properly, Amanda replied. Modern age-appropriate fun. Not Grandma's idea of a good time. They left the kitchen, their voices fading into the noise of the party. I stayed frozen in place, their words echoing in my mind. The casual cruelty, the dismissal of everything I tried to contribute, it stung in ways I couldn't articulate. I had a choice to make. I could burst out, confront them with their behavior, create a scene that would likely embarrass the children and ruin the party. Or, a different idea began to form. They thought they'd sideline me, controlled the situation by locking me away. They had no idea I was now free to move about unseen, to observe, to act without their knowledge. For the first time since discovering I'd been locked in the garage, I smiled. Harold had unwittingly provided me with more than an escape route. He'd given me the perfect opportunity for a lesson my children would never forget. I remained in the pantry, the door cracked just enough to observe without being seen. The kitchen was a thoroughfare for the party. Adults coming to refill drinks, teens grabbing snacks between gaming sessions, my children bustling through with the important air of hosts who believed they had everything under control. They didn't. From my hidden vantage point, I noticed problems emerging that my children, in their determination to exclude me, had overlooked. Timothy had the grill running too hot on the back patio. I could see through the kitchen window that the hamburgers were charring on the outside while remaining dangerously pink inside. Rachel had mixed up the gift tags, meaning Jackson would be opening Lily's presents and vice versa. And Amanda, for all her meticulous planning, had forgotten that Lily's friend Mackenzie had a severe nut allergy. The catered desserts were all displayed together, cross-contamination virtually guaranteed. These were details I would have managed had I been allowed to participate. Small things, perhaps, but the kind that could turn a celebration sour quickly. A sick child, disappointed grandchildren, food that went uneaten. All preventable problems that my children, in their arrogance, had failed to anticipate. As I watched, a plan began to crystallize in my mind. My children thought they knew better than me? Fine. I would let them discover how wrong they were. But not at the expense of my grandchildren's special day. No, I would fix these problems, but I would do it invisibly, mysteriously. Let them wonder how things were resolving themselves when they'd been so sure of their superior planning. It would be, as my grandchildren might say, insidious. Not malicious, not harmful, but unsettling in a way that would make my children question their assumptions. I glanced around the pantry, taking inventory of what I had at my disposal. Extra serving platters, tablecloths, candles, matches. My emergency sewing kit on the top shelf, containing scissors, thread, and safety pins. Cleaning supplies, extra napkins, straws. And most importantly, my intimate knowledge of this house. Every creaky floorboard, every electrical outlet, every quirk of the plumbing and heating systems. Harold and I had renovated much of the house ourselves over the years. I knew which light switch controlled which fixture, which circuit breaker governed each room. I knew the irrigation system could be activated from a control panel in the laundry room. I knew the air conditioning had separate zones that could be adjusted individually. My children had forgotten, or perhaps never fully appreciated, how much of this home was an extension of me. They thought they could cut me out of the celebration. They were about to discover I was woven into the very fabric of this house. I formulated my strategy carefully. First, I would need to address the immediate issues. The grill temperature, the gift tags, the allergy risk. Then, I would orchestrate a series of small, unexplainable occurrences that would gradually unnerve my children, without disrupting the party for the guests. They wanted to pretend I wasn't here? I would become a ghost in my own home. Unseen but undeniably present. I checked my watch. The party had been underway for nearly an hour. The main activities would be happening soon. The gaming tournament, the cake cutting, the gift opening. If I timed my interventions correctly, I could create maximum impact while remaining undetected. Taking a deep breath, I mentally rehearsed my movements through the house. The laundry room connected to the kitchen through a door opposite the pantry. From there, I could access the back hallway that led to my bedroom, where I could retrieve a few additional items I might need. The hallway bathroom had a small window that overlooked the patio, perfect for monitoring the grill situation. The dining room, where gifts were piled on a side table, could be reached through the formal living room, which was currently unoccupied since everyone was gathered in the family room for gaming. I'd need to move quickly and quietly, timing my appearances with moments of maximum distraction. The noise of the party would help cover any sounds I might make, but I'd still need to be cautious. From the kitchen, I heard Timothy announce the start of the gaming tournament. Perfect, everyone would be focused on the screens in the family room. This was my chance to begin. I gathered what I needed from the pantry: a separate serving tray for the nut-containing desserts, my reading glasses to help me identify the correct gift tags, and a small notebook where I could jot down any additional observations as I moved through the house. Slipping the pantry door open wider, I confirmed the kitchen was momentarily empty, then stepped out. After being in the dim pantry, the bright kitchen light made me blink. I moved swiftly to the sliding glass door that led to the patio, carefully cracking it open just enough to reach the grill's temperature control. I turned it down to medium, adjusted the positioning of the burgers, then closed the door silently. One problem addressed. The gift table was next. I moved through the laundry room to the back hallway, then crept along the perimeter of the house until I reached the dining room. The wrapped presents were stacked haphazardly, tags facing in different directions. I worked quickly, examining each tag and rearranging them into separate piles for each twin. As I suspected, nearly half were mislabeled or placed in the wrong stack. 2 problems solved. Returning to the kitchen, I found the dessert trays unattended. I swiftly separated the items containing nuts onto a separate platter, then added a small handwritten sign. Contains nuts. I placed this tray slightly apart from the others, reducing the risk for Mackenzie. 3 critical issues addressed, all without being seen. But this was just the beginning of my plan. Now came the more theatrical elements, the ghost activities that would make my children increasingly uneasy. I returned to my bedroom via the back hallway, retrieving my phone from the nightstand. I sent identical text messages to Amanda, Timothy, and Rachel. Hope the party's going well. Enjoying the garage. Let them think I was still trapped, still unaware of their scheme. Then I prepared for the next phase of my plan. From my closet, I took a light scarf to cover my hair, less recognizable if glimpsed briefly. From Harold's old desk, I retrieved the master remote control he'd programmed years ago to operate various electronics throughout the house. And from my jewelry box, I took the small silver bell that had been my grandmother's. Barely louder than a whisper, but with a distinctive, slightly eerie tone. Armed with these tools and my knowledge of the house, I was ready to become the ghost of the party. My children thought they could lock away a harmless old woman. They were about to discover they'd unleashed something much more formidable. With my preparations complete, I slipped back into the network of less traveled pathways through my home. The party had reached its chaotic peak, the gaming tournament in full swing, music pulsing from the speakers Timothy had set up, conversations and laughter creating a constant backdrop of noise. Perfect conditions for my ghostly interventions. My first opportunity came when Timothy stepped away from the grill to fetch more hamburger buns. I'd been monitoring the patio through the small bathroom window and saw my chance. Quickly, I exited through the pantry and took the exterior path around to the side of the house. Keeping low beneath the kitchen windows, I made my way to the grill. The temperature had crept up again. Timothy had readjusted it after my initial intervention. Silly boy never did learn the art of patience with cooking. I turned it back down to medium, rearranged the patties that were beginning to char, and added a light sprinkle of the special seasoning I kept in a small container in my pocket. Harold's secret recipe that had made his burgers legendary at family gatherings. As I finished and prepared to retreat, I heard Timothy's voice approaching. I ducked behind the large potted fern on the patio, holding my breath as he returned. "What the?" he muttered, noticing the rearranged burgers. He looked around, confused, then shrugged and continued cooking, apparently attributing the changes to his own actions forgotten in the chaos of hosting. One small success. But I was just getting started. Next came the gift tag situation. From my vantage point in the formal living room, I could see into the dining room where the presents were displayed. Rachel had noticed my reorganization and was now examining the tags with a puzzled expression. She called Amanda over, gesturing at the neatly arranged piles. "Did you do this?" I heard Rachel ask. Amanda shook her head slowly. I thought you did. Well, someone did, Rachel said, her voice carrying a note of unease. They were all mixed up before. Maybe one of the parents? Amanda suggested, though she didn't sound convinced. Maybe, Rachel agreed, but her eyes scanned the room as if searching for another explanation. I smiled from my hiding place. Seeds of confusion planted. The party continued, and I moved like a shadow through my own home, making small but noticeable adjustments. When everyone gathered in the family room to watch the final round of the gaming tournament, I slipped into the kitchen and rearranged the food display, making it more attractive and functional. I separated Mackenzie's plate from the others, ensuring she had nut-free options clearly available. During a particularly loud and exciting moment in the game, I used Harold's master remote to subtly adjust the television's color settings, making the picture slightly but noticeably crisper. Timothy blinked in surprise, tapping the regular remote in confusion, when he noticed the improved quality. Did you change something? One of the teenagers asked.
No, Timothy replied, frowning.
It just got better somehow. My movements became bolder as my confidence grew. When Rachel went to the bathroom, I quickly placed a vase of fresh flowers on the mantel, flowers I'd cut from my garden the previous day and had been keeping in water in my bedroom. Upon her return, she stopped short, staring at the new addition. Did you put those there? She asked Amanda, who was passing by with a tray of drinks. Put what where? Amanda replied, then followed Rachel's gaze to the flowers. Her steps faltered.
No.
Where did those come from? Rachel touched the petals gently. They're from Mom's garden, she said quietly. A flicker of guilt crossed Amanda's face, quickly replaced by rationalization. She must have put them there before, you know. Before we locked her in the garage, you mean? Rachel said, her voice sharper than usual. Amanda didn't respond, but I noticed her glancing toward the garage door with a hint of concern. The mysterious incidents continued. I used the small silver bell to create barely perceptible tinkling sounds from empty rooms. I turned lights off in unoccupied spaces, saving electricity as I'd always done when the children were growing up. I rearranged couch cushions that had been crushed by enthusiastic teenagers, plumped and straightened just as I would have done had I been openly present. Each small change was noticed. Each unexplained improvement created more confusion. My children began to exchange worried glances, their confident hosting demeanor cracking slightly as the unexplainable accumulated. During the height of the party, when the gaming tournament awarded prizes to the winners, Jackson among them, I noted proudly, I executed my most daring move. While everyone was distracted by the cheering and prize distribution, I activated the sprinkler system from the control panel in the laundry room, but only in the far corner of the yard, away from the patio and guests. The sudden spray of water against the fence created a momentary distraction. What was that? Timothy asked, peering through the sliding glass door. Sprinklers, Amanda replied, frowning. But they're not supposed to be on today. Did you set them? Timothy asked. Of course not, Amanda snapped, her composure slipping. Why would I turn on sprinklers during a party? Well, someone did, Timothy insisted. Maybe it's a timer malfunction, Rachel suggested, though she didn't sound convinced. Mom would know, Timothy said thoughtfully. She's the one who usually handles the sprinkler schedule. A beat of uncomfortable silence followed his comment. The pinnacle of my ghostly performance came as preparations for the birthday cake began. I'd been saving this moment, planning it carefully. While Amanda retrieved the cake from the refrigerator and Rachel gathered candles, I made my way to the study where I kept my personal stationery. Using my most elegant handwriting, I penned a simple note. Happy birthday, Jackson and Lily. Love transcends all barriers. Grandma. Returning to the kitchen via my secret pathways, I waited until both Amanda and Rachel left briefly to coordinate the cake presentation with Timothy. In that moment, I placed my note against the cake stand, partially tucked under the edge where it wouldn't be noticed immediately. I retreated to my observation point just as my children returned. They arranged 13 candles each on the elaborate gaming-themed cake they'd ordered, my homemade heart-shaped cookies relegated to a side plate, largely untouched. As they prepared to carry the cake into the dining room where guests were gathering, Amanda noticed the edge of my note. What's this? She murmured, pulling it free. Her eyes widened as she read it. "What is it?" Rachel asked, leaning over her shoulder. Her face paled. "Let me see," Timothy insisted, taking the note. His confident expression faltered. "This is Mom's handwriting." "That's impossible," Amanda whispered, looking around nervously. "She's in the garage." "Is she?" Rachel asked, her voice trembling slightly. Amanda pulled out her phone, checking for messages. "She texted an hour ago. She's still there." "Then how did this get here?" Timothy demanded, waving the note. They looked at each other, confusion and the first genuine flickers of remorse crossing their faces. The confident party hosts were gone, replaced by uncertain adults confronting the possibility that they'd made a terrible mistake. "Let's just deal with this after the cake," Amanda said finally, visibly pulling herself together. "The kids are waiting." They carried the cake into the dining room, their movements stiff with unease. I followed silently, positioning myself behind a decorative screen in the corner where I could witness the culmination of my plan. The assembled guests, teenagers and the few parents who had stayed, gathered around the table, singing happy birthday with enthusiasm. The twins beamed, their young faces illuminated by candlelight, blissfully unaware of the adults' discomfort. Just as the twins prepared to blow out their candles, I enacted the final element of my plan. Using Harold's remote, I dimmed the dining room lights briefly, just enough to be noticeable, before returning them to normal. The timing was perfect. The candles went out, plunging the room into momentary darkness before the lights came back up. Several guests gasped, then laughed at the theatrical effect. But my children didn't laugh. Their eyes darted around the room, searching for an explanation they couldn't find. That's when I decided it was time for the grand reveal. I stepped out from behind the screen, into full view of the dining room. "Grandma!" Jackson and Lily exclaimed simultaneously, genuine delight in their voices. The room fell silent as all eyes turned to me. My children froze, their faces a study in shock and dawning horror. "Hello everyone," I said calmly. "I hope I'm not intruding on the fun." The silence that followed my appearance was absolute. For a moment, even the teenagers were quiet, sensing the sudden tension that filled the room. My grandchildren recovered first, their faces lighting up with genuine pleasure. "Grandma!" Lily exclaimed again, breaking away from the table to hug me. "Where have you been? We've been looking for you." "Have you?" I asked gently, embracing her while looking directly at my children. Their faces had drained of color, mouths slightly open in expressions of pure shock. "Yeah," Jackson added, joining his sister. "Dad said you were busy with something in the garage, but that was hours ago." "Did he now?" I kept my voice light for the children's sake, but my eyes never left my adult children's faces. "Well, I was in the garage for a while, but I found my way out." Amanda was the first to recover, her lawyer's composure reasserting itself though her voice was strained. "Mom, how did you? I mean, we thought you were still in the garage?" I finished for her. "Yes, I gathered that was the plan. Fortunately, this old house has its secrets." Timothy stepped forward, confusion warring with dawning realization on his face. "The burgers, the sprinklers, the lights, that was all you?" I smiled serenely. "This is my home, Timothy. Did you really think I wouldn't know how to navigate it?" The other party guests were looking between us with curious expressions. To them, this must have seemed like an odd exchange, but they couldn't possibly understand the full implication of what was happening. Rachel, always the most sensitive of my children, had tears forming in her eyes. "Mom, we didn't mean to." "I think we should serve the cake," I interrupted smoothly, unwilling to have this conversation in front of an audience. "It looks delicious, and the children have waited long enough." With practiced grace, the same grace that had guided me through decades of teaching squirming elementary schoolers, I took control of the moment. I began cutting the cake, directing the teenagers to form a line, making sure Jackson and Lily received the first pieces. The normal rhythm of the party reasserted itself, though my children remained frozen in place, watching me as if I were indeed a ghost. Lily tugged at my sleeve as I handed her a plate. "Grandma, how did you get out of the garage? Dad said the door was stuck." Several of the teenage guests were listening now, curious about this unexpected drama. Your grandfather built a secret passage, I told her, loud enough for everyone to hear. He was very clever that way, always thinking ahead.
Un secret passage.
Jackson's eyes widened with excitement. Like in a mystery novel? That's so cool. Your grandma is a ninja, one of his friends declared, and suddenly I was surrounded by eager teenagers demanding to know more about the secret passage, their gaming tournament temporarily forgotten. I caught Amanda's eye over the children's heads and saw her silent plea. Not here. Not now. For once I agreed with her. This was still Jackson and Lily's birthday celebration. My lesson had been delivered. The confrontation could wait until the guests had gone. The next hour passed in a strange dual reality. On the surface, the party continued, cake was eaten, more games were played, presents were opened, with the correct recipients, thanks to my earlier intervention. But underneath ran a current of tension. My children moved through their hosting duties like automatons. Their earlier confidence shattered. They kept glancing at me, then at each other, silent questions and accusations passing between them. I meanwhile integrated myself seamlessly into the celebration. I chatted with the few parents who had stayed, helped serve seconds of cake, admired the twins' gifts with appropriate enthusiasm. I was the perfect grandmother, present but not overbearing, involved but not controlling. Exactly as I would have been had they simply allowed me to participate from the beginning. The contrast between their awkward, strained hosting and my effortless engagement was not lost on anyone, least of all my children. As the party began to wind down and parents arrived to collect their children, I positioned myself by the front door, thanking each guest for coming with warm handshakes and genuine smiles. This was, after all, what I had wanted all along, to be part of this milestone in my grandchildren's lives. When the last guest had departed and only family remained, the twins were still buzzing with excitement, oblivious to the tension among the adults. That was the best party ever, Lily declared, flopping onto the living room sofa. And Grandma, everyone thinks you're so cool with your secret passage. Yeah, Jackson agreed. Devin said you're like a spy or something. I smiled at their enthusiasm. I'm glad you enjoyed yourselves. That's what matters most. Amanda cleared her throat. Kids, why don't you take your presents upstairs to sort through them? The adults need to talk. The twins exchanged knowing looks, the kind children share when they sense adult drama brewing, but gathered their gifts without protest and headed upstairs. The moment they were out of earshot, Amanda turned to me, her expression a complex mixture of embarrassment, defensiveness, and lingering shock. Mom, she began, her lawyer voice attempting to assert control. What you did was... What I did, I interrupted, my voice soft but steel-edged. Let's be very clear about what happened today, Amanda. I was locked in the garage by my own children, who told me to stay out of their fun. I simply found another way to participate in my grandchildren's birthday celebration. Timothy ran a hand through his hair, looking like the guilty 10-year-old who had once broken my favorite vase playing indoor baseball. We just wanted the kids to have a good time without their embarrassing old-fashioned grandmother? I supplied. Yes, I heard that particular assessment while hidden in the pantry. You were spying on us? Amanda's indignation was remarkable given the circumstances. I was existing in my own home, I corrected. Something you all seemed determined to prevent. Rachel, who had been quiet until now, suddenly burst into tears. We're horrible, she sobbed. Mom, I'm so sorry. I knew it was wrong, but I went along with it anyway. Her genuine remorse cracked my carefully maintained composure. I crossed to her and took her hands in mine. Yes, it was wrong. It was hurtful in ways I can barely express. But what hurts most isn't that you locked me away. It's that you genuinely believed the party would be better without me. Timothy joined us, his own eyes suspiciously bright. We were wrong, Mom. So wrong. When I saw what you did with the burgers, they were burning and suddenly they weren't. I knew someone was helping. And then the gift tags, and the nut-free desserts for Mackenzie. You noticed all that? I asked, surprised despite myself. Of course we noticed, Amanda said quietly, her earlier defensiveness fading. We just couldn't believe it was you. We thought, I don't know what we thought. That the house was haunted? I suggested, allowing a small smile. Something like that, Timothy admitted sheepishly. But then the note on the cake. That was when we knew. How did you get out? Amanda asked. There really is a secret passage? I nodded. Your father built it years ago when we renovated the kitchen. He called it our emergency exit. Dad always was prepared for everything, Timothy said, a note of wistfulness in his voice. Even his children locking their mother in the garage? I couldn't resist asking. They had the grace to look thoroughly ashamed. Mom, Amanda said, stepping closer, her professional facade completely dissolved now. What we did was unforgivable. We treated you like you were a nuisance. I suggested. An embarrassment? A problem to be managed rather than a person to be included. She nodded, tears finally breaking through her composed exterior. Yes, all of that. And I'm so sorry. We all are, Timothy added. Seeing how you handled everything today, how you knew exactly what needed fixing, how the kids lit up when they saw you. We were idiots. Very creative idiots, I amended. Locking me in the garage was certainly an original approach to party planning. A surprised laugh escaped Rachel through her tears. Only you could joke about this, Mom. What choice do I have? I asked, allowing my own emotions to show fully at last. You're my children. I love you, even when you break my heart. That statement broke the last of their resistance. Suddenly I was enveloped in a group hug, my adult children clinging to me as they had as children after nightmares or skinned knees. Their apologies tumbled over each other, sincere and raw. When we finally separated, I looked each of them in the eye. I forgive you, I said simply. But I need you to understand something. I am not just your mother. I am a person with experiences, knowledge, and yes, love to contribute. Getting older doesn't make me less valuable. In some ways it makes me more so. They nodded, chastened but also thoughtful, as if truly seeing me for the first time in years. A commotion on the stairs announced the return of the twins, who had clearly been eavesdropping. Grandma's a ninja and she's wise, Lily announced, bouncing down the last few steps. That's what Devin said, and he's right. Totally, Jackson agreed. And Dad, you guys were super mean locking Grandma in the garage. That's like villain behavior. Timothy winced at his son's blunt assessment. You're right, buddy. It was wrong, and we've apologized to Grandma. Good, Lily said firmly, coming to stand beside me and taking my hand. Because Grandma makes the best cookies and knows how to fix everything and tells the coolest stories about Dad when he was little and embarrassing. I couldn't help laughing at Timothy's expression. See, my stories aren't embarrassing, they're cool. Is Grandma going to show us the secret passage? Jackson asked eagerly. I looked at my children, then back at my grandchildren. I think that's a wonderful idea. In fact, I think your parents should see it too. A family secret, passed down to the next generation. As we moved toward the garage, Lily still holding my hand and Jackson practically bouncing with excitement, I felt a weight lifting from my heart. The day had begun with betrayal, but was ending with reconciliation. My insidious revenge had accomplished exactly what I'd hoped, not just embarrassing my children, but opening their eyes to their own behavior and assumptions. The party had turned out perfectly after all, just not in the way any of us had expected. The remainder of the evening took on a different quality than I could have anticipated that morning. What had begun as a day of exclusion and hurt had transformed into something unexpectedly meaningful. After showing the twins, and their thoroughly humbled parents, Harold's secret passage, we gathered in the living room. The gaming equipment had been turned off, the catered food cleared away, and we sat together as a family, truly together for the first time in longer than I could remember. Tell us about Grandpa building the secret door, Lily requested, curled beside me on the sofa. She'd barely left my side since the revelation, as if making up for the time we'd been separated during the party. Well, I began. Your grandfather was always very practical, but he had a wonderful imagination too. When we renovated the kitchen, he discovered that space between the walls and immediately saw the potential for something special. Was he a spy? Jackson asked eagerly. That would explain so much. I laughed, catching Timothy's smile across the room. No, not a spy. Just a man who believed in being prepared for anything. though I don't think being locked in the garage by your children was on his list of potential emergencies. We really are sorry, Mom, Amanda said quietly from her place by the fireplace. The formal, controlled daughter I'd known for years had been replaced by someone more vulnerable, more genuine. I know, I assured her. And I've already forgiven you. But I hope you've learned something today. Several things, Timothy acknowledged, meeting my eyes directly. First, never underestimate Eleanor Wilson. Second, Rachel added, age doesn't diminish wisdom or capability. If anything, it enhances it. And third, Amanda concluded, family means inclusion, not management. We forgot that somehow, and I'm not sure why or when. I considered her words thoughtfully. I think it happens gradually. You all grew up, built your own lives, became experts in your own fields. Somewhere along the way, you started seeing me only as your mother, not as a person with my own experiences and knowledge. That's no excuse, Timothy said firmly. You taught elementary school for 42 years, Mom. You've managed this household through everything from blizzards to blackouts. You raised the three of us while working full-time and supporting Dad's career. And you make the best cookies, Lily interjected, making us all smile. The point is, Timothy continued, we should have valued your input, not locked you away from it. Well, I said, feeling a warmth spread through me at their understanding, I think my little ghost act made that point rather effectively. It was brilliant, Rachel admitted. Terrifying but brilliant. When the lights dimmed just as the candles went out, I nearly had a heart attack. I thought the house really was haunted, Amanda confessed. For a minute there, I wondered if Dad was somehow intervening from beyond. I finished for her, smiling at the thought. In a way he was. His secret door made it all possible. We talked late into the evening, long after the twins had fallen asleep upstairs, exhausted from the excitement of their birthday and the unexpected family drama. My children shared their own perspectives on what had happened, and I was struck by how something as hurtful as being locked away had ultimately opened a door to greater understanding between us. Amanda admitted that her controlling behavior stemmed partly from anxiety about her own aging, seeing in me a future she feared. Timothy confessed that he'd felt inadequate compared to Harold's practical capabilities, and somehow that had translated into dismissing my knowledge rather than learning from it. Rachel, always the peacemaker, acknowledged that she'd failed to stand up for what she knew was right out of fear of conflict. You know, I told them as our conversation wound down in the early hours of the morning, I didn't just teach elementary school all those years. I taught people. Small people, yes, but people nonetheless. And the most important lesson I learned is that respect must flow in all directions, from old to young and young to old. We lost sight of that, Amanda acknowledged. But I promise you, Mom, we won't forget again. Good, I said firmly. Because I may be 68, but I'm still perfectly capable of becoming the ghost of this house again if necessary. That made them laugh, the last of the tension dissolving into genuine amusement. The weeks following the twins' birthday party brought noticeable changes in my relationship with my children. Amanda began calling me for advice rather than presenting me with decisions already made. Timothy invited me to help with a home renovation project, valuing my experience with the similar work Harold and I had done years before. Rachel asked me to accompany her to a difficult meeting with the client's family, recognizing that my years of parent-teacher conferences had given me insights into mediating challenging conversations. Most touchingly, the twins insisted on regular secret passage adventures when they visited, turning what had been a painful exclusion into a special bond between us. Jackson even started a journal of Grandma's ninja wisdom, writing down the stories and advice I shared during our time together. My home became once again the center of family gatherings. But now there was a difference. I wasn't just tolerated or managed. I was genuinely included and valued. My ideas weren't dismissed as old-fashioned but considered for the experience they represented. On a quiet evening about a month after the party, I sat in Harold's old armchair, looking through a photo album of our early years together. I found myself talking to him as I often did when alone. You saved the day, you know, I told his smiling image. That secret door of yours did more than let me out of the garage. It opened a path back to our family. I could almost hear his gentle laugh, could almost feel his hand on my shoulder. He had always believed in preparing for emergencies, in finding solutions to problems before they arose. How fitting that his foresight had helped heal a family division he never could have anticipated. As the sun set outside my window, casting long shadows across the room where so much family history had unfolded, I felt a profound sense of peace. The hurt of being locked away had transformed into something valuable, a lesson for my children, yes, but also for me. I had discovered strengths I hadn't known I possessed, found my voice when it would have been easier to remain silent, and ultimately, deepened my connection to the family I loved more than anything. Age brings wisdom, but only if we're brave enough to apply it. My insidious revenge hadn't been about getting even or embarrassing my children. It had been about teaching them to see me clearly, perhaps for the first time in years. And in the process, I had seen myself more clearly too. I wonder if you've ever felt overlooked or underestimated because of your age, whether you're considered too young or too old to contribute. How did you handle it? Did you find a way to show your worth as I did with my little ghost adventure? Share your experiences in the comments below. And don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoyed this story of an underestimated grandmother who proved that wisdom and a little ingenuity can teach powerful lessons. Thank you for listening, and remember, never underestimate someone just because of their age. The most valuable insights often come from unexpected sources.